Tonight's story is called Incase of Emergency. It's about a middle-aged man named Marco who is running away from his problems as well as causing them until he meets a man in his apartment building in his elevator. But his perspective view becomes a turnstile. Marco is seen running in the middle of the night as if somebody was chasing him. He makes it through a silent street on his block and makes it to his apartment building, rushing through the doors. The apartment building itself is silent. He rushes to a poorly maintained elevator. The door suddenly opens. Marco dives through its doors, out of breath and sweating, and the man answers, "Hello, where's the fire, son?" As he tries to catch his breath but replies, Marco says, "Just a little mid-evening running." "Well, you don't seem like you're wearing the right attire for such a thing. What floor are you going to?" the man says. Marco says, 22. The man presses 22 with a confident, calm smile on his face. The door makes a faint dinging sound as the elevator starts to move. Marco says, "I never seen you in this building before. You visiting somebody?" The man says, "You could say that. And no, I don't live in this building. What's your name?" "Mine is Gary." Gary reaches his hand out to shake his hand. Marco, with a hesitant look on his face, he reaches out and shakes his hand. He says, "Marco." Gary says, "Pleased to meet you. So what brings you in from the dead of night, if you don't mind me asking?" Marco says, "I told you, man, I was jogging." Gary says, "Oh, right, sure, you were. Jogging. Running away from something, are we?" Marco says, "What do you mean, old man?" Gary says, "Oh, come on now. If you're going to lie, at least make it plausible. It's 11 at night, and you're running in here like your life depended on it. Where are you running from? The police? Someone chasing you? Maybe you chasing someone?" Marco says, "Look, man, I just want to get to my apartment. That's it. I don't have to tell you anything." The elevator starts to slow down further as Marco waits for his floor. Gary says, "I know what it's like. Running away from someone. Running away from something. Something I've done terribly wrong. I've done it before in my past. I've done some things that shouldn't have happened. But I let my ambitions get the best of me at times and burned a few bridges. Come on, tell me." "I won't tell anyone." Marco says, All right. If it'll get you to shut up, yeah, I'm running from someone. Or something, as you would say. I did something really bad tonight, okay?" Gary says, with an intrigued look on his face, "Oh, do tell. The elevator begins to slow down even more, barely getting past floor 10. Marco says, "Okay, I killed someone, okay? Are you happy now? I killed someone and ran off." Gary says, "Oh, and who? The police? A friend? Someone you simply didn't like?" Marco says, "A woman. She had it coming. You understand if you were there." Gary says, "So what happened?" And the elevator stops at floor 13. Marco says, "Well, what the hell? Why'd we stop?" Marco tries to push the buttons to get the elevator to move, but nothing is moving. Gary says, "Oh, you know how these old elevators work. I'm sure it'll get started again. Go on." Marco continued his story. "Okay, she had money. She was a friend of my ex's, and she owed me." Gary says, "Sounds like you had a checkered past with her." Marco says, "Yeah, so what? Well, I got what's coming to me, and she got what's coming to her, and if you tell anyone, I'll kill you." Marco pulls out his gun and points it directly at Gary. Gary says, "Oh, believe me, Marco, I won't. In fact, I will not tell anybody. I'm on your side. You deserve what's coming to you. No one should cross your path." Marco says, with a still holding the gun point towards Gary, "You damn right, and no one knows anything. I'll be getting out of here soon as I get this money and out of this rat house come morning." Gary says, "Well, it might be difficult for you to move on like this. Do you really feel good about what you did? Do you feel satisfied?" Marco says, Yeah, I do. And I'll do it again if the situation happened again." Gary says, "Okay, well, let me show you some alternatives where it could be better for you." Marco says with a confused look on his face, "What do you mean?" Gary reaches over to the elevator buttons and presses guilt. All the elevator button numbers have disappeared and replaced with words and symbols that Marco can't recognize. The elevator doors open. The door opens that lead outside to the streets in the city in a different time, showing Marco's brothers playing basketball. Marco is seen outside the basketball court's fence wearing a hoodie and a bulge concealing a weapon. Marco says, That's me? What? Where is this? Gary says, this is a different time where you continue your current path to being owed. Well, Marco's other self is seen approaching one of his brothers and stabbing him repeatedly with a knife. His brother begs him to stop. Marco pulls a gun out and shoots him. Marco's other self replies, you didn't stay away from her. I told you to never go near us. Marco's brother is sitting in a pool of blood, dying. Marco flees the scene, stealing one of his brother's cars. Then the elevator closes. Gary says, how do you feel on what you just seen? Marco says, how do I feel? I feel this is an illusion. That's not me. I wouldn't kill my own brothers. Gary says, sure you wouldn't. Until something you want, you can't stand anyone else to touch but you. Marco cocks the gun and the trigger. Look, you don't know anything about me. Now get this elevator moving now. Gary says, okay, and Gary presses the button that says passed. The elevator moves again, but only for a short while. It stops again and the doors open again, this time revealing an interior of a living room with Marco's girlfriend sitting on the couch and him at the sink, and it shows Marco disposing what appears to be trash while his girlfriend is passed out on the couch. A vacant crib is seen in the living room. Marco has a shocking look on his face, and he says, no. Marco tries to close the elevator doors, but it won't budge. Marco says, stop this. Stop it now. Marco grabs Gary and says, stop it now. Gary says, stop what? You clearly didn't. You wanted what was best for you. You wanted to live life on your own terms. You took what you wanted and you leave what you didn't want. Marco says, she said she wasn't. Her dad would have killed me. We had no money and I had nowhere to live and I had to. Gary says, oh, I understand. You had to. It's survival. You had to do it. Marco says, yeah. The elevator doors close again. Gary pushes another button that says redeem. The elevator moves again. Marco says, now where are we going? Gary says, well, that's up to you. This is your path, your life. You have to decide what you to think is best for you. Could be the best alternative. The doors open again, revealing Marco in a rehab mental facility. Marco is in a wheelchair, staring out in his room with his hands on his face, shaking rapidly, constantly murmuring. A nurse comes in the room and gives him a high dose of medicine, and the orderlies wheels him out of the room into a shock treatment room. Marco, without words, stares at his former self. The elevator doors close again. Gary says, do you feel this could have been a better solution to your problems? Do you think you could have rid of your self-hatred? Marco says, I want off this now. Marco then, instead of hitting him with a gun, he punches him in the stomach. Gary's slightly out of wind and laughs, and Marco grabs him again, holding him at gunpoint. Marco says, let's go now. I'm not dicking around, old man. Gary reaches down and pushes the black button. The elevator doors open again. Gary says, here's your stop. The doors stop in an empty black void and stillness. Marco looks out with confusion and sees nothing. He reaches his hand out, doesn't see or feel anything but darkness. Gary says, this could be your salvation, Marco. This is possibly your fate. The doors close again. Marco turns around fast. Marco says, no, I'm not going in some purgatory with you. I'm going to end you. You are the one putting this in my head. Marco starts to pull the trigger, but the elevator moves fast, and then the light goes out before Marco could even pull the trigger. With rapid speed, the elevator finally stops. The lights turn on again, but Gary is gone. Marco wanders in confusion, looking everywhere to find him, but no trace. Marco then stops and thinks for a moment. He reaches the gun and starts to pull the trigger, and the gun clicks, but the bullets are not present in the gun. Marco, in anger, tosses the gun down and tries to hit every button on the panel, trying to open the doors, but the doors are stuck again. With anger, he sits in the corner and yells, somebody help me, someone get me. He sits there in confusion until the very last moment he realizes why he's there. The next morning, a woman is carrying a package with a suspicious look on her face and reaches the elevator. The door opens before she can even touch the button, and it reveals that Marco is standing there with a stare. The woman walks in cautiously and pushes the button to close the doors. Marco says, so what are you running away from?